And we just wanted to show you, Myra had made up last week some unleavened bread, and how quickly they are to eat unleavened bread for a week, for an entire week. There's not to be any leaven in their midst. And so in the research that has been done, the rabbis all say that unleavened bread has got to be fixed in 18 minutes between time the flour hits the bowl and then the water hits the flour. It's got to be baked in 18 minutes, because otherwise the natural yeast in the air will cause the bread to leaven. And so Myra did an experiment. This is the same batch of dough, started out as the same batch of dough. This one was baked right away. There is no little blisters. It's as flat as can be. And this one, you can see it. There's little blisters all around. It looks kind of like a, what do you call it? Like a stuffed sopapilla. I had one of those over the weekend. It was really good. Little blisters, you know. It just blows up because of the yeast that's in the air, or the leaven that's in the air. And so this becomes an important piece of the puzzle that literally fits together as we're putting God's story together from His Word. There are so many things that we find. There are pieces of God's Word. It's like a giant game of Clue, and He expects you to find the clues and then to put them together so that you understand the whole story. Now, you can read an entire book and just read the black and white words that are written on the white page, and you can say, I read that. Well, you really? Well, tell me what you think what happens on page da-da-da-da-da. And you go, well, I don't know, I really didn't think about it. That's the whole point of Him leaving clues in the Bible for us here. He wants us to think about it, because one clue leads to another clue, and pretty soon you put a bunch of clues together and you're going, oh my gosh, I think I understand. Well, guess what? That's one of the spirits of God, spirit of understanding. And He wants us to understand. This is not something that's to remain a mystery. Mystery is something that can be figured out. Okay? It can be learned. So, with that being said, now we'll get started, maybe. So, we're in this is the last verse of chapter 12, verse 51. And I just wanted to make a remark about this before we get started. So, and it came to pass on that very same day that the Lord brought the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt according to their armies. And your first, what should be a reaction when you see that word, armies? It's the word sabah. Okay, plural, right? It's a plural word, yeah, armies, okay. What's another one?
Lots of folks.
Lots of folks, okay.
A lot of different groups of people.
A lot of different groups of people. Tribes, okay. But let's just take the word army for what it's worth.
Mighty military power.
Fighting force, okay. Do we think of the children of Israel having an army at this point in time? I mean, they've been living under the jurisdiction of the Egyptian Empire. It's kind of a strange word. It's used 3 times. According to their armies, that phrase is used only 3 times in the Bible. Once here and a couple times in Numbers. One where it says, everybody, all men 20 years of age and up are in the army. And then there's another one, and I can't remember what the third one is, because I can only remember, if there's a list, I can remember all but one, you know, so well, there you go. But anyway, the other 2 are in Numbers. So here's the Hebrew word, tzavah. Is that close enough? Tzavah, okay. I want you, okay, now we're not just talking about a group of people that's 4,000 years ago. We're also talking about Debbie here at the table today. We're talking about Bob down there. Okay? We're talking about you. This stuff relates to you guys as well. Armies coming up and out of the world empire. We've talked a lot about world empires the last few weeks. I won't go there, but just know that the world empires, it's the children of Israel, God's army, that is defeating the world empires. Okay? It's not any different today than it was back then. There's a world empire at work. And he doesn't like you very much, quite frankly. Okay? So I want you to think about this. Be strong in the Lord And it doesn't really much matter. This is what should really help you guys, because a lot of guys get nervous when we talk about the bride of Messiah, the bride of Christ so much. Well, a bride in combat boots, right? We could say it that way. Ladies understand that. Us ladies don't understand too much about being in an army. You're in the army now. You know, we don't understand. Guys do. It's just a natural thing. God put in you men's hearts this natural. It's a natural DNA thing of being the protector. You're the big one. You're the protector. To do things right. Okay. So if you can, if it helps you guys to see yourselves as one of God's army people, it's the same thing for us ladies as to see it as the bride. It's the same thing. Do you notice what these pictures have in common? They have a sword. How about we do this? They both have a shield, there's a shield here. They both have swords, but those phrases should be very familiar to us. The shield of faith, the sword of the Spirit, that's His word in your mouth, coming out, and it will accomplish something every time, all the time, every time. Is that a true statement? God's word in your mouth will accomplish something? Okay, God's word in your mouth and your belief that behind it, just pushing it out there, is going to accomplish something on this planet that we're living on, right? Okay, so shield of faith, and we have shoes over here, the gospel of peace. Myra even said it. That's exactly what's happening today. God is going around to the different nations and He's suing for peace. That's a very biblical Torah concept. He said, you go to the nations and you sue for peace. And if they join you, welcome them in. And if they don't, you will go to war with them. And we wonder why we've been at war for 4,000 years. Okay? And believe me, God is going around and He is. It might not look like it. It might not look like it. But there are prophetic words coming forth, and there are diplomatic trips that are happening right now, and leaders of countries are being sued for peace. You will not hear that on CNN. You will not hear that on CNN. I have a couple of words for you. Number one, New Year's Eve. I just think this is astounding. I forget what it was, in a big city in the South, Virginia, I think, somewhere. 65,000 young people, like Ryan and Isaac and Kendall. 65,000 filled up a football stadium and praised the Lord on New Year's Eve. 65,000. You don't think the word in those young people's mouths is not going to make a difference? Suing for peace in this country?
We didn't hear much about that.
Didn't hear much about that, did you? No.
When did that take place?
When?
Where?
One of the big football stadiums in the South. Who's got a big football stadium in the South? I don't know. But
Alabama's got a big one.
where?
Probably Elevation. I know there were a lot of churches in Red Rock that had.
They had for young people. Across the country then, maybe, huh?
I think so.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's what I heard. I heard it was a movement across the country.
See, we've been praying for a movement. A movement is much bigger than a revival. We're praying for a movement. And we're beginning to hear words like, there's prophetic words. There was a prophetic word given on December 30th, Hank Kuhneman, once again, and all of a sudden, the next day, this general doodah guy from Iran is gone. That was part of the prophecy. And another part of his prophecy was that people in Egypt are going to be coming out by the crowds. The president of Egypt is going to come around, and he's going to allow his people to they're going to be worshiping Yeshua out in the open, the entire nation. Okay, so things are happening. Those are the kind of things. God is so peace. It's not what we think it is. What the stuff that we're hearing in the news, don't be afraid of that. That's, man would just love, the devil would just love for you to think that that man is about to unleash nuclear war. And I'll tell you one thing that we're finding out behind the scenes, behind the channels, that was exactly the plan had Hillary been elected. That was the plan. You want to know why the enemy is so angry? Because she didn't win, because this is not going to happen. sows and plowshares and all that kind of thing. Perhaps, we'll see. But we'll keep praying, and we'll keep believing God, and we'll keep being not afraid, okay, as we go forward. Yes, sir?
That was in Atlanta.
Atlanta, thank you. Georgia, good.
5,000 young Christians. Came up every day. Worship, prayer, and class.
There you go.
And it was live on the internet.
And they carried it on the internet, so it went across the country. Well, what were you doing New Year's Eve? What are you doing New Year's Eve? Okay. So chapter 13 it's about knowing and loving God. This is about the destination of our journey as they're leaving the world empire of Egypt, if you will. It's about the reward of our efforts, and it's about the goal of being part of His creation. So this day that they left, which is the day of first day of unleavened bread, correct? This day, we are to remember. And I know we talked about this last week, but guess what? He's still talking about it. It must be something really important this day. He said in verse 2, or I guess I should let you maybe read. Nope, we'll get there in just a second. He said, to set apart for me, from man and from beast, that which opens the womb. It's the word Kadash, set apart. You guys are set apart. I want you all to say that word, Kadash, or you could say Kadosh. What is Kadosh? Why is Kadosh and one is O and one's A?
Yeah, but that one is Kadash.
This is Kadash, set apart. Say that. That's how God wants you to see yourself. You have been set apart unto Him. You have been set apart from the rest of the world empire. You have two choices. You can be in God's kingdom. You can be part of the world empire. Those are two choices. That's it. It's not about being a Baptist or a Catholic or a Methodist or... No. It's about being part of God's kingdom or part of the world's system. Okay? Set apart for me, from man and from beast, that which opens the womb. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Raham. Pater Kol Rahim. Okay. All right. And what to do? What do? This is the question. Because this would not occur to very many people. But we need to ask ourselves, what do firstborn and unleavened bread have in common? They cost a lot of dough. I love that. Can I steal that line from you? That is, they cost a lot of dough. There you go. Both man and beast, Israel's children. If you're part of God's kingdom, I want you to understand, even if you're new here, or even if you've been here 1,000 times, if you're part of God's children, you are part of Israel. All of Israel is not Jewish. Israel is about being part of God's kingdom. There's a lot of Jewish people that are not part of God's kingdom. Okay? All right. But, okay, Israel's children. We make a choice to become part of Israel's children, if you will. So now, here we go. Exodus 13, and we're going to split this into 3 groups and sections in verse 1 through 10.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Consecrate to me all the firstborn, whatever opens the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast, it is mine. And Moses said to the people, Remember this day in which you went out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. On this day you are going out, in the month of Abib. And it shall be, when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall keep this service in this month. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day there shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and no leavened bread shall be seen among you, nor shall leaven be seen among you in all your quarters. And you shall tell your son in that day, saying, This is done because of what the Lord did for me when I came up from Egypt. It shall be as a sign to you on your hand, and as a memorial between your eyes, that the Lord's law may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. You shall therefore keep this ordinance in its season from year to year.
Okay. I just to point out, in verse 8, look what it says. It says, verse 8, the last sentence, this is done because of what the Lord did for me when I came up from Egypt. And verse 9, that the Lord's law may be in your mouth, for with a strong hand the Lord has brought you out of Egypt. He has brought you up from Egypt, and he has brought you out of Egypt. And that's exactly what he's done to every one of you when you had your come to Jesus moment. Okay? He brought you up out of the world system, and he brought you over to into his kingdom. That's a very privileged place to be. You have been delivered up and over, and you're now in his part of his family of firstborns. Doesn't matter if you're a baby of the family, a middle kid. I was a middle kid. I'm now a firstborn. I like it. Okay? All right. Firstborn, Pesach, unleavened bread. He says to remember this day. What do these have to do with one another? And this day, which day is this again? Just the name of the day? This day? Remember this day. Which day? Passover. Passover and Feast of Unleavened Bread. They run together. Okay. For as by strength out of the house of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. That's what it is to be in the world system. It's in a house of bondage. You're in bondage when we're in the world system. Okay? And out of this place, by the strength of his hand, that he did this. These people didn't do this all by their lonesome. God arranged every bit of the deliverance for them, just like he's done it for you. And this day is to be holy or set apart. Verse 3. This unleavened bread is a really big deal. It's a big deal. And in my Father's house, here's Yeshua's comment on it. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you, I go to prepare a place for you. So we have out of the house of bondage to the house that he's prepared for you. That's the concept. In case you ever wonder what it is that Jesus did for you, he brought you out of one system and put you in his kingdom, into a house prepared for him. And a lot of us Christians, we want to just push that whole verse. Well, that's later. That's later. That's in heaven. Well, maybe so. But it's right here too. It could be this and it could be that. But let's not negate this part here, okay? In my Father's house are many mansions. You are not living today in a tyrannical system of government. That's what they want to bring to you, but that's not what we're living in today. Okay? Let's keep that in mind. Let me illustrate it this way. Remember the day when you went out of the house of Egypt, and we went from one house to another. Okay? We went from the house of bondage to the Father's house that's prepared for you. Does somebody want to say, please, somebody somewhere in this room say, wow, God's plan is really good. Isn't it awesome? How many times do we stop to go, God, thank you for letting me live here. Thank you for letting me live in your house. Thank you for letting me be part of your family. We managed to turn that all around. It's like Christianity's trying to sell you something. If you'll just accept Jesus into your heart, if you'll buy this program that no, it's not that. It's, God, I heard about you, and I heard the good news, and I heard what Jesus did, and Can I be part of your kingdom? Lord, would you let me in? And like any good father, he'll say, he's not going to deny you a piece of bread, right? He's got bread for you, him. fresh bread. What an awesome concept. Who wouldn't want to serve a God like this? I mean, really.
That's the only house that has a firm foundation.
There you go. The rest of it's all going to be stuff that's built on sand that's going to crumble. Yeah. So on this day you're going out of the month. It's the month of barley, the green ears, month of Aviv. That's when we celebrate Passover, because God tells time with barley. From the earth, he tells time with barley. From the heavens, he tells time with the moon. And when the barley gets to some certain state, it's not ready to be harvested yet, but it gets to some certain state, and then all of a sudden, that is the signal for us. It's a clue. We were talking about earlier, it's a clue. That's when we go out and we look for the next new moon. There it is. And once we see that next new moon and the little crescent that pops up after the barley's in a certain stage, then we start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. That's the day of Passover. And that's his calendar. Clues. Clues. Clues, okay? Clues. All right. And you shall keep this service, this avodah, this avodah. It's a labor. It's a labor. It's a work. See, it's a work. Now be careful, because Christianity will tell you, you're not going to get saved by works. That's true. You can't work your way to salvation. But once you're saved, once you're part of his family, he wants you to keep this service, and he wants you to keep this. It's a little bit of work to keep a Passover service. Okay? That's what he's talking about. It's not about do this and this and this and this and earn this badge and earn this badge on your and then boom, then you become a part of the family. No, becoming part of the family costs you absolutely nothing. It costs him everything. True? True. But we've even misunderstood this concept. No, you can't work your way into salvation. He did all the work. But he wants you to keep this service, which literally means it's a labor of a servant. And for 7 days you shall not eat unleavened bread. Is that a hard thing to do? For 7 days? Mm-hmm. Not by now, Bill. Okay. Look at these first 10 verses of this chapter. 8 of them are about keeping the service of unleavened bread. Okay, so he thinks it's important. And then he says in verse 8, he says, "Tell your son, this is done because of what the Lord did for me when I came up from Egypt." Okay, so there they are in Egypt, and he brought them up and he brought them out of Egypt and he delivered them. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. He took them up and he delivered them someplace. And then he says, "I want you to be sure and tell your son, hand this down to the next generation." Okay? 2,000 years later, this is the road he was walking on. What is this road called? It's got a name. Road to Emmaus. Where is it found? In my book. In our book. It's found in our book. We're doing a recording by the way, this afternoon at 3 o'clock in the other room in there. But 2,000 years later, the road to Emmaus is what he's talking about. And he's walking with 2 disciples, and they're just, "Wow, man, what happened? I thought did he deceive us? Everybody's upset. He's dead. We thought he was going to be the Redeemer." And he catches up with them and he walks with them, and what does he do? But he opens up the scriptures, and beginning with Moses and the prophets, he declares to them what they wrote about him. Okay? This is a big deal. That was halfway through the week of unleavened bread. True?
Yep.
There you go. That's 2,000 years later. And then 2,000 years after that, today, that road looks like this road. Here's Highway 1 going up from Tel Aviv up to Jerusalem. Here's Jerusalem up here on the hill. And this is the Roman road. This is what's left of the Roman road. of the road to Emmaus right there.
Where do you go through in the city area? You know, do we have an idea?
Well,
You know, like, like all those residential areas right now.
yeah, this is all residential areas. Hey, Shane, this is all residential areas. So 7 miles from Jerusalem, and the last probably a little over a mile is all that's available. The rest of it's all under streets and under buildings. This should be called the Miracle Mile. If there's ever a miracle mile, this should be it. And every Christian in the world, if they gave $1 or something like that, that land could be restored. That should be the #1 tourist attraction in all of Israel, right there.
Show them Emmaus.
Emmaus is this area right down in here. Is this the Yellen House? This is the Yellen House here? Right here. And you want to see how smart God is in his tactics, how serious he is? This is the old road that cut right through Emmaus, the village of Emmaus. And for some reason, 10 years ago, I don't know when the whole project started, Israel decided to move this highway over to here. This is the midst of the construction of the highway.
And lift it up.
And yes, and lifted up on high pillars. It's lifted up, so this whole area is now open. That's amazing. It's like God's getting prepared to do something, maybe. Like, I don't know, he said this should be a memorial to you. I can't think of a more fitting memorial to you. And you know what this whole area is right here? It's very large. This is huge. The largest cemetery in all of Israel. So there it is. Think of the irony of this. Resurrection Day. And Yeshua is walking on the road to Emmaus with 2 disciples, and he's explaining to them, here comes the living bread, the resurrected Christ, explaining to 2 of his disciples what the Bible's all about, what Moses and the prophets are all about, and why it was he had to die. He'd already told them 3 times he was going up to Jerusalem to die. They couldn't hear it. Nobody wanted to hear that. He went up to Jerusalem, and he paid the price. And now here comes the living bread from heaven. Why is the song in my head hopping down the bunny trail going through my head right now? Hopping down the bunny trail. No. There is the living bread from heaven walking down this memorial path to road to Emmaus from Jerusalem, 7 miles out, explaining things to 2 of his disciples. It becomes the beginning of the biggest missionary movement in all of history, obviously. Right? And this is now the largest cemetery. One day, the day that he was walking and bringing life to the people, 2,000 years later, it would be a mountain of... It would be a mountain of dead. I'm hoping that there's going to be a whole bunch of resurrection coming out of that mountain there.
Yeah, amen.
That's amazing. Yeah, 4,000 years later. Okay, here we go. All right. He says it'll be on your hand. It should be a sign on your hand and between your eyes and in your mouth, a memorial, a reminder. Can you imagine of a better fitting memorial than that trail to be restored? Because right now the earth is swallowing up that trail. Myra and I have been there. We've walked it. We found it. We wrote a book about it. The work of your hands and the thoughts of your mind, the word of your mouth, coming out of your mouth, to remember that out of Egypt with the Feast of Unleavened Bread for 7 days. That's what we're to remember. Okay. All right, let's go. 11 through 16, Steve, if you would. Oh, sure. Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah.
Susan, yeah, that's
You know, that just makes me think of the Shema there, the sign on your hand and between your eyes.
Yeah, it does. Connects it right.
There's also a footnote in this Bible that says the mark of the anti-Messiah in Revelation 13:16 is also in the right hand and forehead. And this is symbolic of you think with your mind and do with your hand.
That's exactly right. That's what that's all about. It's not a physical thing. It's what are the work of your hands doing and what are you thinking about, kind of a thing. Yeah, good add. 11 through 16, Steve.
And it shall be, when the Lord brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your fathers, and gives it to you, that you shall set apart to the Lord all that opens the womb. That is, every firstborn that comes from an animal which you have, the males shall be the Lord's. But every firstborn of a donkey you shall redeem with a lamb. And if you will not redeem it, then you shall break its neck. And all the firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. So it shall be. And when your son asks you in time to come, saying, what is this? That you shall say to him, by strength of hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And it came to pass when Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go, that the Lord killed all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all males that open the womb, and all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It shall be as a sign on your hand, and as a frontlet between your eyes. For by the strength of hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt.
Okay, so up until the time of Yeshua coming, when a firstborn, the firstborn was redeemed of man, a little boy, was redeemed with money. They would take the little boy up to the temple, or up to the priest, and they would, it was a half shekel, I think, that they would pay. They would either give the kid to the priest, or they would give a shekel, or half shekel, temple shekel, and it would redeem the baby. That's how they were redeemed up until the time that Yeshua comes. And today we're all redeemed by what? The blood of the Lamb. We're redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. No more is money. You can't be bought. You're a blood-bought church. That's where the whole concept of a blood-bought church comes from, okay? You can't buy your way out of being a sinner. Let's just put it that way. That doesn't work. You can't buy your way out. There's no way. And I thought it was really cute, and I think it's probably God's sense of humor, or else it's my twisted sense of humor, that he says, even the firstborn of a donkey, and you could say that another way, can be redeemed by the blood of a lamb. Okay, all right, here's Susan's version of the Bible. Even asses can be redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. True? Asses, yours says that? There you go. What version do you have? Oh, never mind. All right. So, this show and tell did not start in kindergarten like we all thought. How many of you remember kindergarten? And you got to bring on Friday or Thursday or Friday, you got to bring something from home, and you would have show and tell. Yep. You know, that was our first experience of getting up and having your microphone and getting to tell. Well, so it didn't start in kindergarten. It started back here. He said, "This is what you are to tell your children, so that when your son asks you in time to come, saying, 'What is this?' that you shall say to them, 'By the strength of hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage.'" Okay? So this next picture, this is 14 and 15. And it came to pass, but Pharaoh was stubborn about letting us go, so the Lord killed all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both firstborn of man and the firstborn of the beast. And therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all the males that open the womb, but the firstborn of my sons I redeem. Okay? That's why that's why God can call you a nation of firstborns, because He's redeemed you with the blood of the Lamb. Okay? All right. This next, I love this next slide. If we don't tell them, we have children that will grow up to be adults, and when they come and God has a little conversation with them and they don't know anything about it, that's like the expression that they're going to have on their faces. Like these little kids, I didn't know. I didn't know. It's important that we tell the next generation. Psalms 145:5-4 says, "One generation shall praise your works to another and declare your mighty acts," because if we don't do that, if we don't show them and we don't tell them, we will forget. And the next generation will not know. So, this week, what I was working on, Mrs. Thompson, and I was looking up some statistics. Are you ready for this? 52% of millennials. You guys millennials? You're not millennials?
No.
No.
We're like the beginning of the next generation.
Okay, Ryan's a millennial. 52% of the millennials are not churched in America. 52% don't go to church. What's the need? I don't need it. Okay. Beyond that, since 2000, church attendance itself has dropped off. It has doubled. 8% to 19% of people now go to church. It's dropped by 19% of people going to church. So like 80% of the people that used to go to church don't go to church anymore. 20%, that's not, backwards. 20% of the people that used to go to church don't go to church anymore in America. What does that say, Ching? We're not teaching our kids. If the adults don't think it's important, why would the kids think it's important? Right? Now, I've got a son and a daughter, and my son is very much involved in the church. Praise and worship, plays the guitar, sings it, all that stuff. And my daughter doesn't go to church. She's a believer, but she doesn't go to church. There's a lot of folks out there that are believers, and they don't go to church. And why doesn't she go to church? Because boy, was she hurt by a church. About 20 years ago. Yeah, I mean, she said, "Mom, I don't care if I ever see the inside of a church again." Now, those are the kind of wounded hearts that only God can heal, right? And only families can love members. So if you have a member that can't go to church or won't go to church, or what, do you stop loving them? Do you no, you just keep loving them and praying for them. There's a lot of, you know what? You don't have to be a Baptist to get into heaven. I have news for you. Right? Okay. You have to have a come to Jesus moment, I think, at some point in time. And then, and the Lord will, once you're one of His, He's not going to let you go. I think He says like that, nobody's going to pluck you out of my hand. You might have some interesting days, but nobody's going to pluck you out of my hand. Unless you want to jump out. Okay. Because we are physically and chemically designed to forget. Especially as we get older. Ask me, Oh, I've already said that. Oh, I gotta say it again. Don't use the old. Okay, all right. We would all forget the importance of the Exodus from Egypt if it was only history. And see, the funny part of it is, for many, many, many people, God's kids, they just think of that as they came out of Egypt. Yeah. It's a story somewhere out there, and it's very vague. And it's just, they could tell you the story in 2 sentences. So we need this commandment not to forget to do this, right? To keep this. We need the commandment to observe this event on a yearly basis, because we don't do it on a yearly basis, we will forget it. Apart from the commandment, we would never even think about it, except for some minor historical reference if somebody referred to it, or it would be some kind of a footnote in history in a book somewhere. Oh yeah, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. There's a new movie coming out, Tim Mahoney, and the, what's it was called, The Exodus Conspiracy? series that he's doing. Part 2 is coming out in February. I think it's going to be released, so maybe we can make arrangements to go see that all together or something. You wanted to? But, so is the Exodus an end of it in itself? Is it just the fact, okay, they came out and now we're supposed to keep this feast? Does the story end there, or does it lead us to someplace else? This is really important. Remembering and guarding this feast is like giving God recognition for what he did for us coming out of Egypt. It's a group thing we can do together to recognize that God did this for us. God is the one who brought us up and out of Egypt. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
It's like we're in Egypt and we're comfy. And we don't see the need to come out.
No.
So he not only brought us out, but he lit a fire in us, say, you need to get out of here. You know,
Yeah. And he did.
Like,
we can get very comfortable. A baby robin can get very comfortable in the nest, you know, and then mom pretty soon comes along and says, all right, we're out of here. Do you know I found out something this year? I didn't know this. I'm 70-some years, and I didn't know this, that when they're done with the nest, they're done with the nest. It's not like the parents go back there and sleep in the nest after the babies are gone. Did you know that? They don't have a place to call home. They just do that to raise their family. And then they're all out of there.
yeah.
Right? Interesting. This remembering and understanding and acknowledgement and appreciation of God who accomplished this redemption, it's almost like we would give him a plaque. Presented to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh. All right, here we go. Presented to Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh in appreciation for your many years of dedicated service, devotion, and commitment to our organization from the children of Israel. Yesterday, today, and forever. Okay, if you're going to put a date on it. Can you imagine God sitting in his office and he has a plaque on his wall and he goes, oh, the kids remembered me. Think about it sometime. When you sit there and you're talking to God, have a real conversation with him like he's real, because he is. I'm here to tell you, you can tell him anything. You can ask him any question. You can make any statement. You can tell him, you can and ask him to show you, ask him to help you understand. He's there for you. It's called a relationship. Somebody have, Dolores?
Yeah, instead of organization, is it possible to put
Well, this was just a pre-printed thing, so yeah, but our commitment to our family. Yeah, the organization of our family, for sure. Yeah, that would probably have been better. Yep. Okay. So in each generation we remember the night of leaving Egypt. How many times can I say this? Each firstborn is to be consecrated. Passover is a constant and yearly reminder that our redemption cost Yah his only begotten Son. A firstborn Israelite was spared sacrifice because God allowed the price of redemption. And I'll remind you, it's all about the covenant. Because the covenant that God made with Abraham is the type of covenant that says if this gets broken, somebody's going to die. And because Yod-Heh-Vav-Heh put Abraham to sleep and he walked both ways down that bloody walk, read the book. When they made the covenant, it was God taking on the responsibility that he was going to give his firstborn to die for the whole. And in Hebrew thought, one represents the whole thing. That's a beautiful picture. That's why Angie doesn't have to die for her sins. Isn't that awesome? Thank you, Lord. Yeshua did it. It's called a substitute. And it's all because of the covenant that he made with Abraham. And we dare not, we should learn about that covenant, what it means, and we dare not forget it. Okay, so the first time was by the blood of the Lamb, and then it was by a few shekels. And after Messiah, it's all by the blood of the Lamb. And our goal in life should be to know this. You should know this. This should be one of the very first things when somebody, well, could you please tell me about your God? This should be some of the stuff that comes out of your mouth right in the first couple minutes of your conversation. That we have been redeemed by the blood, by the blood of the Lamb of God. We're all members of the firstborn club. And it's all because of this. It's much more, our experience and our testimony should be much broader than Jesus died on the cross to forgive me for my sins, and he has a wonderful plan for my life. Please. That's true. There's nothing truer than that. That's true. That's nothing negating that. But you should be able to have more to offer to other people than that. Than saying those words. Because it's more than that. Keeping the Feast of Unleavened Bread and Pesach goes hand in hand with being redeemed from the bondage of the world system. And God is most pleased with us when we're satisfied with Him. That first song that we sang today, that bread, there's nothing more that can satisfy us than the bread from heaven and the living water. We're satisfied. We don't want to look for, does anybody in here want to look for another God? Why? You don't want to look for another God because you're happy with Him. And that makes God happy. Do you realize that you make God happy? Isn't that awesome? Yeah. God is most pleased with us when we are satisfied with Him. Okay, let's wind this up. Steve, last couple of verses.
Then it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God did not lead them by way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, lest perhaps the people change their minds when they see war and return to Egypt. So God led the people around by way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up in orderly ranks out of the land of Egypt.
Up and out. Look at that. There it is again, right? Yeah, there you go.
And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had placed the children of Israel under solemn oath, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here with you. So they took their journey from Succoth and camped in Etham at the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of cloud to lead the way, and by night in a pillar of fire to give them light, so as to go by day and night. He did not take away the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night from before the people.
Okay. All right, pillar of fire. Why do I have a big Y up here? Okay. Oh, why? Oh, here's some examples. Why? I think I lost a slide in there because there should have been a good question as to why this comes up. He's taking them up and out of Egypt. He's protecting them from the world system. And parents, I have a series of slides here that are just, should really touch your heart today. Kind of picture's worth 1,000 words. Watch these. Parents should protect their kids from the storms of the world system, but how do we do it and why? Are parents obligated to protect their children as much as possible?
Yes.
Why?
They can't protect themselves.
They don't even, a lot of times little kids are so innocent, they don't even realize that they need protecting. There's a big nasty world out there. Be it the, the taxi driver at the corner, rushing running across the stoplight or whatever. Anyway, watch this.
We need to realize what our parents have done for us.
Yeah. Yeah. If your parents brought you to Sunday school, thank them. Even if they're gone, thank them. Right? Anyway, let's see. Let's take a look. Examples of how being one of God's firstborn, set apart from the world system. This is a perfect example of how it is that God has protected you your whole life and you don't even realize it. His heart's desire is for your heart, to protect your heart. He'll protect you from the fiery arrows of the evil one. Just look at that. That picture makes me want to cry. She's absorbing all the arrows. What?
That's what the pilgrim women did for their children when they were on the boat in
Yeah.
Jerusalem. They
It pro-
protected children by giving them life.
There you go. Keep them warm, huh? There you go. And see, the little guy doesn't even have a clue. He's just looking up into the loving eyes of his mom. Clue about praying for your kids. It's like putting them in a bubble. Here's the evil of the world system. We just love to come and just... I will, if you want me to, I will send these to you. Yeah. And they're beautiful. Okay. Enough mushy. Okay. So God led the people around by the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and He did not want them to go. He didn't take the shortcut. He led them around. He led them around. So I looked that up and I thought, well, that's got to be interesting. It's in the Hiphel stem of the Hebrew, and it literally means in the Hiphel stem to turn or cause to turn or to turn back or to reverse or to bring over. There's another one of our, He brought them over, picked them up and brought them over, turned into bring around, cause to go. So, okay. To lead around, these two words in the Hebrew are connected with each other. Right here. Don't ask me what it says. I can't remember. I had it and now it's gone. So whatever. But and the journey, the word the journey, was that journey? Did we see that there? Journey? Nope. That's the next verse. So they took their journey from Sukkot and camped at Etham on the edge of the wilderness. So journey is literally the word nasa. I said, when I first looked at that, I thought NASA. And NASA to me means up, right? I mean, American nomenclature. But anyway, it's very close, NASA. It literally means to pull up, out, or up, to set out, to depart, set forth of a wind. There's another strong, the Ruach brought them. And they camped. So they went up to pull up or out, and they camped. It literally means to bend down or decline. Okay? So He pulled them up, and then He put them down. He pulled them up from Sukkot, and He put them down at Etham.
3 million people.
3 million people and all their animals, and all the plunder of Egypt in the twinkling of an eye. Everybody snap your fingers. This is how long it took. Because they had to bake unleavened bread before 18 minutes went by, don't you know? If you missed the last 2 weeks, I'm sorry for you, but that's the way it goes. Okay, so Yahuwah has this, God has this nation of firstborns, and one represents the whole. And I would love to know, and I've tried to grab hold of this, but I wonder which Israelite went up to Moses and said, Moses, don't forget that Joseph made his promise to take his bones with him when we go. Okay? So the guys had the staff in their hand because they were going to be the army of God, right? The women had the kneading bowl on their shoulders with the dough in there, right? Because an army goes on its stomach, right? And Moses had the bones of Joseph on his shoulders when they went. Everybody go. Ready? When it was time to go, boom, they were ready to go. And everybody went. Is it possible that that the Israel's children could forget coming out of Egypt unless they remember with an event each year? Yes, it's no wonder Yeshua said, when you do this, do it in remembrance of me. So we don't do it on an annual basis. We do it on an annual basis. We keep the Passover, but we also kind of like to do this communion thing on a weekly basis. And when Yeshua says, when you do this, do it in remembrance of me, we're remembering him and what he's done for us. Don't let that just be a piece of bread dunked in the glass of wine and eat it. I mean, think about what it is that he's done for you, right? So when you do this Passover unleavened bread is to be a celebration of redemption. And the final Passover celebration of Yeshua is now something that we call communion, and it's of bread and wine, and we're to remember him every time we do that. I think with that, we'll just end it. Is there any...
This has been a presentation of Fellowship of Messiah with teacher Susan Miller. Video editing by Joel Thompson. If you've enjoyed this video, please click the thumbs up icon below the screen on the left, and subscribe by clicking the bell icon below this video and to the right to be notified of each new video we post. Know someone else who'd love this video? Click the arrow pointing to the right in the upper right hand corner of this video and share. Until next time, Shavua Tov. Have a good week. And may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you his everlasting peace and harmony in every area of your life. In Hebrew, that is, Yivarekeka Yahuwah v'yishmerecha, Ya'er Yahuwah panav alecha v'yikuneka, Yisa Yahuwah panav alecha v'yasem lecha shalom.